What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the weekend college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey. Joining me tonight, my fellow BBOC co-host, Greg Waddell and Matt Cox from the Three-Man Weave, filling in for Jim Root. Jim will be back next week with us, hopefully not giving us Memphis to win the league. Although I spoke to him an hour ago, he said, get the same price, and they play South Florida twice. But we'll talk about that at another date. Crazy week of college basketball already. More to come this weekend, including two amazing games with, I think currently if the season ended today, would they all be the one seeds playing each other? All right? Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Houston. I think those would be the one seeds.
Yeah, I think Houston probably jumps Connecticut after their loss last night,
yeah.
Right?
And ranked, I think, Greg 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's only happened a couple other times in the history of college basketball. And before you know it, March will be here in less than 10 days. It's right on the horizon. A lot to get to today. We'll go through rapid fire spots that we're looking at for the weekend. We'll add a future to our portfolio. And we will talk a team that we're either buying low or selling high. And now we'll talk about the week that was. Maddie, welcome. Hope all is well with you. What do you want to touch on from the week that was? You can go anywhere you want.
Man, I don't know. Michigan kind of reasserting themselves as they kind of had that lull at the start of Big Ten play. I think they failed to cover 6 or 7 games, and it's kind of at the point where they were being priced like they were a juggernaut 96 Bulls type team. And that was sort of during the Yaxel is not 100% healthy phase. And this team's fully just back. And we'll talk about them here shortly. But yeah, I just think Michigan kind of reasserting itself. And then sort of the beneficiary of some other top teams looking a little bit vulnerable, some injuries as we will shed a tier or 2 or 10. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the Wolverines. My guy, Dusty May.
Did you want to mention UNLV, the variance machine?
The variance monster, Josh Pastner. If you like bet money lines, you got to know to bet on them. You got to know to bet against them. They are top 5 in ROI in betting on as a dog, and bottom 5 betting on them as a favorite. 6 and 7 to the money line as a dog, up 134% for those of you mathematicians at home. Just Josh Pastner and how crazy this team's been, injury ridden, but certainly talented, and with all their junky defenses that they play with, their turnover induced chaos. I think it's a team I'll continue to sort of use that as a seesaw betting trend the rest of the year. So shouts to the Vegas variance monster that is Josh Pastner and the running Rebs, who I have no idea what they are this year. Yeah,
very bizarre team. You never know when Gibbs Lawhorn is going to go off. But back to Michigan, now the talk of this week now is that, like, I've seen this many different times from different outlets. Like, this is just, can you beat Michigan? This is Michigan's tournament to lose. I'll push back on that a bit. And obviously they're one of the favorites and one of the deserved favorites. But in that, we saw them just go into Mackey and dominate Purdue, especially in that first half. But they shot 13 of 23 from 3. I will tell you, when Michigan shoots 40+%, I don't know who's beating them. That because their defense is so good, because of their size, and if you add the shooting, to their offensive rebound, if they shoot 57% from 3, that every game they're winning the national title. I'll tell you that. They went on that lull when they were shooting 28% from 3 over a 2-week stretch. That has to be the hope. Like, how do you beat Michigan? Like, who's going to beat Michigan in the tournament? I mean, number one, you're going to need to be a team that has bigs that can at least compete with their size and, not just get clobbered on the offensive glass and clobbered at the rim. You're also going to have to hit some shots because you're not going to be able to score on them consistently at the rim. But you have to turn them into jump shooters in the half court, and you have to hope that they don't shoot 40+%, because when they do, I don't know who's touching them. But that's basically like when Michigan's making their threes, good luck. I don't know how you beat them. But that's how it has to be a team that's going to has to, take them out of transition, make the game a half court game, have enough size to battle inside, and then you have to hope that they don't hit their threes. You have to hope that Elliot Cadeau, you can't have Mara and Morez Johnson went 7 of 12 combined. Excuse me, not Mara. Elliot Cadeau and Lendenborg went 6 of 12 combined. When that happens, you're not going to beat Michigan. Greg, do you have any thoughts on? Is that the only way that you can beat Michigan? Right, you got to just have to battle them inside, have to turn on the jump shooters, and hope that they shoot 30, not 40+% from three. And then it's not a guarantee you're going to win. Look, their only loss came against Wisconsin, and Wisconsin shot 15 of 33 from three, and it still went right down to the wire. Is that the only way that Michigan's going to lose in the tournament?
I don't think you want to say only way, just because what a silly thing to hypothesize about a team that was down 16 to Northwestern a week ago. Obviously they're vulnerable to some extent, but I do think they've proven themselves to have this quote unquote big game element to them as a team. I think you have to at least have a formula similar to what Wisconsin was able to do in Ann Arbor, have multiple guys in the backcourt that are high volume 3-point shooters. I really think it's a death trap for teams that rely on front court production to beat this Wolverine team in its current form defensively. We'll see against Duke this weekend. They're going to get about as 2 different physical great tests back to back in the next week between Boozer and Ngongba for Duke, and then Illinois, who has all these 7-footers that will just space you out and possibly play Mara off the floor. If they pass both of these tests, I don't know what we can even say and what will happen to the market. But for now, they certainly do a pretty difficult matchup for anybody.
Yeah, one of the things that Wisconsin showed is that it is very beneficial to play Michigan when you have bigs that can step out and shoot, pick and pop threes, right? But I think Velasquez and Winter, Rapp didn't even play in that game, hit 8 out of 14 threes in that game. So one of the keys to Duke potentially beating Michigan this week, can Boozer, he's not a high volume 3-point shooters, but he's shooting close to 40% from three. Can Boozer hit some outside shots from distance? Because that is one of the ways that you can either start to draw their bigs away or take advantage of just an elite, ferocious rim defense. Yeah, and I shouldn't say the only way. I just think that that's one of the most likely formulas. Greg, how about you? Where do you want to go for this week in the world that was?
I'm just bummed with all the injuries. I think we mentioned it in passing just a moment ago, but starting with Caleb Wilson, who was having such a phenomenal freshman season, a big game guy. He talked about how much he cared about the Darren Peterson matchup, and then clearly his performance against Duke, and Boozer, his former AAU teammate. He was having such a special season. To have him miss this very crucial portion of the remainder of the regular season, and who knows what it will do with him in March, was sad. But then you follow that up with 2 more serious injuries, Richie Saunders and JT Toppin, now both out for the year. And I look at BYU and Texas Tech, 2 teams that, say what you want about them, erratic at times and high ceiling, maybe low floor with their superstars. Without Saunders and without Toppin, I just feel like both those teams are completely dead in the water, and they're going to end up, somewhere between a 4 and a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament, even if they fizzle out here. And they're just going to be dead fish in the bracket, and that sucks because Christian Anderson and JT Toppin would have been an absolute must-watch. No one wants to draw them 4 seed maybe a week ago, and I don't even care about what the analytics say about BYU. I've been a skeptic of them all year. I didn't want to see DePonsa and Saunders and Rob Wright, and they're just such an infinitely easier team to beat now. So stop this. Injury gods, that's enough. No more. Let us get to Selection Sunday without taking away any more of our teams.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, number one, I'm curious to see what does Tech do now? What does McCaslin do without Toppin? In the past, McCaslin has had teams where he's played very defensive focused. It's Toppin's not having Toppin's going to hurt on that end too. But very defense focused, grind the game down to a half court. That's what I think they needed to do. Like limit possessions, become a 3-point variance monster on both ends. Like because you're just not going to be able to. Toppin was so integral to everything that they did, and we talk about all their shooters. Well, a lot of times their shooters, guys like Atwell are open because teams are collapsing down on Toppin. He's getting offensive rebounds and kicking it out. I mean, it is just a massive loss for a team that had no depth. All right, we talked about their lack of depth. They didn't have a bench, and now they're going to have to rely on a lot of guys that are nowhere close to the caliber of player that Toppin is. And without Saunders, we talked about this too. These were 2 months ago. We talked about, or a month and a half ago, we talked about the things that we're worried about most with BYU and Texas Tech are their lack of depth, and they're very reliant on like a 3-headed monster, 3 key guys. Well, you take away the head of that monster and you take away one of the 3 keys of the other. Yeah, I don't see it. And I'm also curious to see, what does the committee do with Tech, right? Like, how much do they drop them? How much do they penalize them? Because, if they were, I don't think they're going to be a 4 seed now, but if you're the 1 or the 2 and you potentially see them in, the Sweet 16, that's your team, then I would be very, very happy, because I'm not sure there's a lot that McCaslin can do. And I agree that I think the ceilings have just been lowered for both teams, whereas I just don't see how either is going to get to a Final Four or certainly cut down the nets now. Do you have any thoughts, Maddie?
Yeah, maybe they just try and go like a North Texas throwback. You got Luke back healthy. I mean, if he gets hurt, good night with this team. You just have to go 5 guard and just do something crazy. But at least he's back. You have a chance to maybe retool with the defensive-minded approach. But, this team can really, spread and shred to an offense. So, I think it's going to be a confusing. At least the schedule down the stretch is somewhat favorable. Who knows what happens at Iowa State in a week and a half, but at least it's K-State, Cincy at home, TCU at home, but then BYU on the road. But again, we just talked about BYU. They're same issue, same boat. 2 top-heavy teams that spent, $3 million upwards for their alpha. They had depth question marks since this summer, and here we are February 19th, and unfortunately the worst-case scenario has structured for both.
Yeah, the thing is the committee can just look at like that Arizona State loss, right, the UCF loss, and penalize them a bit more and justify it, because if they finish 3-2 down the stretch, you don't want to kill them too much for losing like at Iowa State and at BYU.
Right. Iowa State's just like, everyone loses there. So,
curious to see how far they drop, but certainly depressing news. And the Big 12 tournament, which is going to be this monster, has definitely lost a little bit of luster. And who knows? When's Peterson going to check out after the first media timeout of the first Kansas's first game? You're not going to have Saunders. You're not going to have Toppin. It's kind of depressing. I'm going to go a little more upbeat. I hate to do this because my college football co-host on this show is an Arkansas fan, but I'm just going to give some props to Arkansas and talk about that's a team on the 4-5 line that no one, if you're a 1 or 2, I hate to be the guys, no one wants to play them, but you just don't want to play this Arkansas team because they're just going to roll the ball out there. They can score on anybody. Acuff is incredible. Dropped 49, and they almost won at Alabama. They ran out of players. They were playing 2 guys in double overtime that they never ever play. But so once they get fully healthy, and you have Acuff and Thomas, that's a team that can make a run just on talent alone. And we saw it last year, right? Like this team during the regular season, they were very inconsistent, very up and down, but the talent was always there. They're more talented this year. But people forget, right, in the tournament as a 10 seed, they beat Kansas, then they upset St. John's, and they should have beat Texas Tech, lost to Texas Tech in overtime. And then people forget that Texas Tech should have beat Florida. Yes, I'm still salty. And then Florida won the national title. It's very easy to forget these things even like a year later. It's just like, Florida rolled to a national title. But I think Texas Tech was up 10, I think, with 5 to go. Florida made all kinds of crazy shots. And then Texas Tech probably shouldn't have even been there because they should have lost to Arkansas. But this Arkansas team, that with their talent in the backcourt, can go head-to-head with anybody in the country. And it was encouraging to see them do it on the road where they haven't been as dynamic. Maddie, any thoughts on the Hogs?
Yeah, I mean, John Calipari, I kind of compare him to Eric Musselman or Eric Musselmarch. Just they seem to sort of have very talented teams. They tinker a lot and they play matchup hunting type games when it matters, right? I think, assuming my Bet Lab data is correct here, 35 and 25 against the numbers, John Cal in the NCAA tournament. With a solid 1 point cover margin against the close. So, I mean, I think there is something real to like, even if this team, was kind of floundering with some weird losses, I still believe in the upside, but now we actually see more consistency. So you have a higher floor than we're used to probably seeing, and you have that high ceiling we always knew was there, especially with Acuff, assuming he stays healthy, knock on wood. We heard about that rumor about him being in a boot. If he's healthy, he's obviously the engine for this squad.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Peterson. I'm invested in Kansas. But look at that game. Guy was in a boot. He played all 50 minutes. Like that's what we like to see in college basketball. Greg, I'll pose it to you like this: if Michigan in the Sweet 16 drew Arkansas, now Michigan would probably score 105, and they would get like 1 million offensive rebounds. But there's a chance that Arkansas can score right with them. What would your thoughts be going into that game? Like, is that right? Like, that's kind of scary.
I think that's the exact archetype of a team Michigan doesn't want to see. You don't want to see a team with just prolific guards that could combine to score 80 on their own.
Yeah,
that don't even necessarily need to go inside to do it. I think you have to have somebody in the front court that is psychotic enough to take on the challenge of Mara and Merez, and Brazil would qualify. So, I think that'd be a terrible matchup for Michigan.
Yeah, and Billy Richmond, I think, is like the key, the glue, the guy who's doing all like the little things, and he's electric at the rim. And Pringle obviously would have to stay out of foul trouble, and then their defense needs him inside. All right, let's move on to our futures roundtable. So far, congrats to Greg, by the way, who finally got on the board last week with Illinois, national champion, 15-1. That's come down. Illinois, I believe, had the most efficient half in the history of KenPom last night against USC, who they embarrassed on their home court, eviscerated. A word wouldn't even do it justice. They destroyed the Trojans. But we have Illinois national champion. We have Virginia Final Four, 20-1. Virginia, all you had to do was beat Georgia Tech. I didn't need you to beat them by 100 and get juiced up. I wanted Virginia. I still do want Virginia against Miami, but that wasn't very helpful. Tillis went down with a potential injury at the end, which is worth noting, one of their interior guys. Not sure how serious it is. But Virginia Final Four, 20-1. Purdue Final Four, 6-1. I'm still okay with that. Like, they've lost 3 times at home. I like the way they played in the second half against Michigan. They obviously need, like, a certain type of draw, but with I did like to see TKR like finally unlock his offense and get aggressive and score. Painter's still has to make a few tweaks, but with Smith and that team, if some of their other role players are making shots, they can still get to the Final Four. Not sure they can win it all and beat like 2 of these elites in a row, assuming that it's top heavy in the Final Four, but still okay with that. St. Louis Final Four, 80-1. That one took a hit. It's still at like 30-1. But them losing at Rhode Island when, what's his name, made 10 threes? Where did that come from? But they're now at risk of the 8-9, and you don't want that. So I'll be seed watching. I'd rather St. Louis falls to a 10 than play in the 8-9 game.
Yeah, agree.
So we'll see how that works out. And so those are our 4 right now. Jim proposed potentially buying low on UConn Final Four, but Jim's not here today. Matt is going with a play that I can almost guarantee you I won't be voting for. Is this more like an index fund return play? Yeah. What do you got?
It's an ETF. $7 to win $1, right? So your grandma's
bond that she gives you. On the board in our portfolio.
I just think this Michigan team's. I started about my. I was waxing poetic about it at the onset. They're minus around 700 to win the Big Ten. They're 2 games up on Illinois. CB Analytics Sim has it priced fairly. I actually have it priced close to like 89%. So I mean, this is not a crazy huge edge here, but My thought here is even if they lose to Illinois, right, very possible. I don't see any way in which they lose to Iowa. And I'm sorry, Greg, I don't see any way in which they lose to Michigan State. I just don't. So I think even if you beat Illinois, you're home. And if you don't, I feel, I have those two games lined higher than I think the market projects. So with the depth I talked about, the way we've seen McKinney and Case really step up, there's a lot of this team's just pretty bulletproof. So yeah, just a small lame index fund. Sorry to lead off with the ROI of in the low single digits percent. Kind of lame.
Well, I will. I mean, McKinney being that talented, being like your 8th or 9th guy, is obviously huge. And if he continues to just get better and better, but I haven't heard enough people talk about Kason. It's his emergence too, and he's playing more consistently on the offensive end, and that's been an issue in the past. But if they get those two guys also, and then you just like avoid a Cadeau disaster game, yeah, I mean it's hard to see them losing to Iowa or Michigan State at home. Illinois game will probably be a coin flip. I bet Illinois to win the Big Ten a couple weeks ago. Sadly, Illinois lost back-to-back overtime games, which killed that bet. Because I really wanted it to come down to the home game at Illinois, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But
what was your price on that? That's like probably 15-20% right now. So
yeah, I mean I have plus 135. So I mean I can get plus 350 now. I needed Illinois to win one of the overtime games, not lose both, which was just a killer. And then I then, as a result of that, I needed Purdue to beat Michigan at home, which they didn't do. So, yeah, it's really hard to see Iowa. I mean, shout out to Bennett Sturts for the defensive job that he did against Nebraska. Again, another guy, he played every minute. I saw a stat, he ran like 17,000 miles in that game. I mean, he was chasing Sanford around. He had key blocks, key charges. That was a defensive masterpiece. And then obviously he's the only one who can make a shot when they need it. And that's how Iowa's going to have to win games because no one else can help him. No one else can make a shot. It's just basically him trying to do everything. And it's amazing that he's able to hit some of these shots because he was exerting so much energy on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, I can guarantee I'm not going to be voting for this one. But Greg, we have two that are kind of related. What do you got?
Yeah, we do. I was looking at this. So I just think there's a misprice here. This was a DraftKings prop I was scrolling through this afternoon to pick the conference that will play home to the eventual national champion here. The SEC is 11-1, and I like that. It's priced identically to the Big East, which makes no sense to me, because UConn is the only team I can see from that conference even making a Final Four run, let alone winning it all. And I'm not sure UConn can. At least with the SEC, you have the Florida ticket. Florida individually is priced 13-1. But I think we've sort of discussed a bunch of teams already in the last week and on this episode. Like Arkansas could easily make it to a Final Four. I watched that game with Alabama thinking I don't want to see LeBaron Philon in March. You're going to talk about another SEC contender here in a moment that I think it's a good time to buy in on. And honestly, I think you could still stare at Tennessee, a team we've talked about in this future segment in recent weeks. You've got 5 teams I think could get there relatively reasonably, pending draw. And if you get there, you might have some hedge opportunities, but bare minimum, you have Florida as a true contender that doesn't feel all that off from the Houstons and the Dukes of the world here.
Agree.
Again, comparatively, if you were trying to play the Duke angle here, the ACC is plus 650 to be home to the champ. That's just Duke to me. Like, there are more contenders in the SEC that could win at least 4 games and leave you with some hedge chances. And just quickly on the injury follow-up from what I was already saying, a lot of these Big 12 teams, that's the favorite here. It's plus 130. A couple of the Big 12 contenders just took huge hits, and I don't love that nearly as much as I did a week ago. You could also look at Big 10 plus 165, but at that point, even that feels like it's kind of Michigan or bust to win it all right now. So I see 11-1 just as a misprice, and I think it's a good time to just fire something and give us some SEC representation in the portfolio.
Whoa, yeah. Does that Illinois disrespect there? The Illinois shade on purpose?
Stuck, I was looking at it more. I love them, and I gave it out a week ago. they have the profile of like every team I fall for every year that has the number one offense and like the 24th best defense and just gets got because they can't get a stop in the Elite Eight.
The key would be that their defense is improved, like has shown improvement, has shown to be more diverse, and they had some injuries, right? So now that you're fully healthy, how much does that ceiling raise with their defense, right? Like that's where I think they could be different. So we'll see down the stretch. With now they're fully healthy, right? Like they're at 100% health, which is pretty important, and this is a good time of the year to get healthy. Fingers crossed. Obviously, things could change. I'm going to go a similar angle. I'm going to go Vanderbilt Final Four 13-1. If you look at Torvik, he has I think Vandy at like 15% to make it to the Final Four. I think it's more like 8, 9, 10%. So I'm okay when they get healthy, and so I'm okay at this price on the surface. But going a couple steps deeper, number one, they're top 20 in offensive and defensive efficiency. They have a first-round pick on their roster in Tyler Tanner, who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot of the time. And so that's right there. Those are like the qualifiers to win the national title, to get to a Final Four. Top 20 offensive, defensive efficiency. Do you have like a star guard who can take over games? Additionally, a very, very good coach who I think can do some very good things in a tournament setting. And the timing of this. Yes, they've lost what? They're 6 and 1, 2, 3. I think they're 5 and 5 over their past 10. So I think we're getting close to the bottom. But part of that is they're not fully healthy. And I think they really, really miss Duke Miles. He's kind of like another valve for offense. He obviously has ball pressure, being another ball handler on the court. I don't think Frankie Collins is coming back, but maybe he does, and there's more depth there. But as a result of some of the injuries, they built some more depth, right? You've seen guys like Chandler Bing start to contribute. Okereke, I thought, has played well of late, and he's starting to get it. But I think this is a good time to buy. They host Tennessee. They're going to be, I don't know, around a 4-point favorite. Then they're home against Georgia. They should. I expect Miles to be coming back very shortly. Right, then they close the season with Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. So, like, very reasonable schedule coming up. Going to get healthier. I think they have the formula. They have the coach. And I think it's a good time to buy in on Vandy. Who, by the way, someone remind me, if Vandy's ever down 20 with 7 to go, live bet them. I've never seen a team I don't know how, they almost beat Oklahoma, who was up like 20 with like 4 to go, and Missouri, who I turned the game off. I never turn games off. I was going through scores to update stuff at the end of the night, and it said 81-80. And I was like, what? 81-80? And then I went back and watched. That shot was halfway down. So Vanderbilt, 13-1 to make the Final Four. So here's the vote. Then I'll get your guys' thoughts on I'll get your thoughts on that real quick. Maddie, do you have any thoughts on Vandy Final Four?
Yeah. So I had this on my list. I had this on my list. I think it's a wait for me. Here's why. They have Tennessee twice left on the schedule. You look at who they've lost to. They're 2 and 3 against teams that are in the top 30 of offensive rebounding rate. They haven't played 2 games against Tennessee, and then even Georgia, who I know we don't really perceive as like a fit, but they do crash the glass pretty well. They killed St. Mary's, which felt like 10 decades ago, and they beat Auburn. I don't think any of us really think is serious. So I worry that there is a lingering matchup kryptonite, which we saw last season. We have seen at times this year. Byington was up in arms about how soft they were. I love Vandy as much as you. I've been waiting to fire. I looked at it closer. I think I'm going to wait till after that Tennessee finale on the 7th and just hope that I get maybe a slightly better value if they go maybe 1-1 against Tennessee there, and maybe they drop one at Georgia.
Yeah, they're probably going to split against Tennessee is what I would assume happens. Yeah. Now, if Miles is back against Tennessee, I do think they can force turnovers. They can get Tennessee in their backcourt in foul trouble, which could be a difference. And that place is going to be juiced up. Greg, and any particular thoughts on Vandy?
No, it plays right into mine. I think they're absolutely a team that could make a run. The only hesitation, as we just spoke about, 3 straight road games to end the year, including Rupp Arena. Not that Kentucky's unbeatable, but I wonder if they lose 1 to 2 of those, if we get a better price in 2 weeks.
Okay. Let's vote. 1 for Michigan to win the Big Ten. 2 for SEC national title winner. And 3 Vandy Final Four. 1, 2, 3, vote.
I like Greg.
Greg wins again.
I'm with him.
Back to back.
I'm looking at the Big 12 board here. I'm just like, yeah, the Big 12 we all thought was top heavy, and the SEC was kind of middle mushy, and then it took a week and a half, and I'm just like, that's flipped totally, especially with Florida. The Florida thing just changes the whole complexity of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the price isn't that far off of Florida, and then I just think that, I mean, even Arizona, Pete, is he going to be fully healthy? But that's another one to throw in there. But yeah, you look at the top of the board now, like BYU and Texas Tech were scary teams that you can pretty much eliminate now. I think Connecticut has issues right now, which, would
Alex Caravan moving like cargo ships.
Yeah,
so I don't know if I like that.
The Big East price, and then those Big 12 injuries drag down those injuries. And then you mentioned the Big Ten. I think Illinois and Michigan can win it, but I don't think Michigan State has the consistent enough half-court offense. I don't think Nebraska can survive with their 3-point variance game. So, I think that it makes sense to invest in the SEC at this point in time. All right, let's
so much crap to Jim when he gets back on the show. He misses 2 weeks, and I get 2 futures in the portfolio. That's huge.
All right. Good stuff there. Let's do a little buy low, sell high. You can go wherever you want with this. I'm going to kick things off. I'm going to go Florida Atlantic. This is a team that lost 6 straight. They got a win, a pretty ugly win over UTSA to end that losing streak. But look, South Florida has been the best team in the AAC this year, but it's going to be a pretty wide open conference tournament. FAU played right with them, an incredible game that went to overtime. They had a shot to win that they missed. Here's the thing. FAU has not been healthy. They're a different team. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Well, with Caden Carlisle, who's really important to them. And then last game, Devin Vanderpool, their leading scorer, didn't play. So they haven't been fully healthy in, a couple weeks. And that's coincided with their losing streak. So as they get healthier down the stretch here, I think there's going to be some opportunities to bet them. I think there's going to be some opportunities to potentially bet them to win the AAC. This team has some juice, and they might be undervalued in the market. So I'm looking to potentially buy on FAU. Maddie, what do you got?
I like FAU. I like him more as a conference tourney bet there, just to put a cherry on that. I agree. I think the talent's there, and you can see the firepower.
Yeah, and who in that conference are you this team can't lose, right? Like, it's going to be.
Yeah, AC's flattish for sure. As good as Tulsa and South Florida have been, I don't think they're invincible. Obviously, I'm going to sell the Hook'em Horns. Sorry to the burnt orange nation out there. I just think Texas, as good as they've played, another offense has been a juggernaut. Schedule has been pretty favorable. Coming down the stretch, I think we're going to see them exposed. Some of their defensive holes, we were like, who is protecting the rim all year? I still don't think that question's been fully answered. They have some erratic guards, some high-octane fun guards, but some erratic guards. I think there's going to be some opportunities to fade them down the stretch. They don't have a lot of recourse for poor shooting nights. I just don't like teams like that, especially when they've been shooting so well. They've kind of hit what I think is the apex of their value, especially offensively, which is why they are where they are.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 5 straight, and it's been Oklahoma, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Missouri, and LSU. So pretty favorable stretch. Defense, yeah, I agree, still has issues. They never turn anyone over. They foul too much. And that foul trouble could be very costly down the stretch. I wish Georgia had to go into Kentucky and win. And I still might look at Georgia in a pretty good spot on Saturday, but that certainly didn't help matters. Georgia will be looking to get revenge from a very, very lopsided game in Austin But that was a pretty good spot for Texas. I think the roles are reversed.
I see Florida -4 on KenPom next Wednesday. There's no way the market's going to have that -8, maybe -10 by close, it seems like. So we'll see where how far that deviates. And obviously what happens this Saturday too will dictate some of that. But I just like right now, like I would, if Ken could go in there, maybe fudge a number or two manually, which I know he probably wants to do, that might be one I'd nudge up a few points.
Greg, what do you got? Who you buying? Who you selling?
All right, I'm going to buy back a little, just a smidge of BYU stock here. This is about as low as I think BYU stock can get, given the Richie injury that we discussed. However, I watched every possession of the BYU-Arizona game, and I really thought that was going to turn into somehow a 20-point blowout loss at minimum. And I noticed a couple things. Thing number one, I think they're going to very deliberately slow games down. This was their slowest game since the Houston game, where they played a 59-possession game. I think that's got to be the path, given how little depth they have left. I think you've got to turn it into basically long isolation possessions and let A.J. DeBonsa be A.J. DeBonsa. Now, it's going to be harder on him, obviously, with less shooting, and they have a bunch of quote-unquote shooters that can't make shots right now, including Kennard Davis. But from watching that performance against Zona, just if the difference here without Saunders is just going to be DeBonsa shoots 30 times a game instead of 22 times a game, I don't think they change as much as the market may think in the next couple of weeks. And you look at the schedule, Iowa State's the big one. They have that in Provo this weekend. After that, it's doable. UCF at home, road trips to West Virginia and Cincy, and then Texas Tech at home on the final game of the year, now in a post-JT Toppin landscape. I just won't be surprised if BYU sort of changes their identity enough, slows these games down, and leans fully into AJ's going to shoot half of our shots, and that doesn't go as terribly as we think on paper, and they finish this year 4-1, possibly even 5-0 with an Iowa State upset.
Yeah, I want to back them this Saturday. I think I still will. My fear, I really wanted them to get blown out of the water at Arizona, but it's you're right. It's good to see. I do regret not betting the under. It just kept getting hit, and then I was like, I missed the boat. But then it was a no-sweat winner. They're not going to miss Saunders a ton on the defensive end, right? So, like, they can replace him with guys. Just, you play more Bop and Boscovich, whoever. You're not going to miss him a ton there. My fear against a team, against a team like Iowa State that is going to send to it guys. So, like, DeBonce is going to have how many guys running at him in this game? So this is the type of game where you need that weak side shooting and you need the other like Kennard Davis. You got to make some shots here, which is the only thing that scares me is that it's going to be tough for DeBonsa to do what he did against Arizona against this Iowa State defensive structure. But in principle, I agree. In the spot, the spot is terrific at home. Iowa State is coming off 2 top 5 wins over the weekend. So I'll be looking at BYU, but that's my fear is that DeBonsa just gets run at and then no one else can make a shot for BYU. It might be another underlook though as well. Matt, any thoughts on BYU this weekend against Iowa State?
Yeah, I know that we saw some zone from BYU and they did some, unique kind of matchup trapping things, and Kevin Young's talked about that. So I like that he's willing to adapt. I see kind of with Greg's point, they will sort of change their identity, play more half court isolation hunt, and on defense, I think to at least, mitigate some of those, not just more injury risk, but just to conserve juice, right? Like the old Syracuse model. We're going to play 5.5 guys. We're not going to have them run off the floor. Play some smart zone, maybe that catches some teams off guard a little bit. They haven't scouted that, haven't been as used to that coming down the stretch here. I'd like to see Young do more of that, like really push a lot of buttons here, and just kind of lean on your top end talent and protect your juice on the other end with some tricky stuff.
Yeah, they're gonna. I expect to see more zone, pack it in. You just got to hope Momcilovic doesn't hit 8 threes in this game. I think at home, Momcilovic this year. I was looking at this the other day. He shot 40% the other day, at which he went 2 of 5. I think now he's at 58% at home from 3 on like 120 shots or something. It's insane. All right, good stuff there. Before we move on to the weekend, or Matt, I think you had a couple others. You wanted You wanted to buy LaSalle.
Yeah, let's rapid fire.
So
I got
injuries,
three.
Though. Didn't they have another injury the other last game? I know they played Duquesne tough. I think they got another injury. I never know who's playing.
They got Brewer back. They got Marshall back. And you're right. Who knows how healthy they stay. But, man, they are being priced like a bottom barrel team. I don't think this team's any worse than they possibly have played for most of the year. I think they're gritty down the stretch. So I will be exploring some explorer value. I like the next two I have written down more. I got Campbell. Been healthier in the front court. I think they're super well coached. They just had no bodies and just been totally throwing stuff at the wall. We'll see what they do tonight. They're in action right now against William & Mary. They're down 3 late in the first. And then Milwaukee, Bart Lundy. Got Faison Fields back. Needed him pretty badly. They've had some freshmen that really played key parts. Chandler Jackson, Amar, the linebacker bucket getter Aguilar. If he's hot, he can go off against anybody. I think they're a buy low down the stretch too. So that's my mid-major trifecta of buy lows.
I would for LaSalle. Yeah, I had LaSalle, the team I wanted to buy, coming down the stretch, as they were going to get healthier. But I think Jaden Marshall got put in a cast in their last game, so they lost another body. So something to look into. I think he's probably out for the year, but I don't know that for sure. But good stuff there. Before we move on to our weekend look, here's your weekly reminder to sign up for Action Pro. Action Pro users get real-time, immediate notifications when any of our action experts track a pick, whether that's Chris Raybon, Sean Kerner, myself, or any of our experts. You'll want to get that notification before lines start to move, or if you're live betting, important to get that right away as well. Right now, you can get $20 off a year of Action Pro with promo code POD20. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro to get started. That's promo code POD20 for $20 off an annual subscription at actionnetwork.com/pro. All right, let's get to the weekend. Friday, let's start with Friday if anyone has anything. This team has cost me so much money, but I'm probably going to fade them again. I'm probably fading Merrimack against Siena. I think the line was 3.5, 4. I saw as an opener. I get the Merrimack zone. I don't know this pipeline they have into Philly with their backcourts they get. They got the Father Judge backcourt after losing Clark. And, Kennedy has been amazing and his running mate Shelton. But, their zone, Gallo's awesome. Their zone creates a ton of chaos. Their offense is still very ugly. And let's just look at these two teams over their past 6 games. Merrimack's gone 6-0. They've been a covering machine. They will get out-rebounded by like 30 in a game and still win and cover somehow. And that's because teams, and they do a good job of taking away the three-point line, but teams are shooting 22% from 3 over the past month and a half. Meanwhile, Siena, over their past 6 games, is shooting 27% from 3, 353rd in the country, and they're allowing teams to shoot 40% from 3. Same league. They're playing the same shitty teams. We have 40% and 20%. I think Siena has the best offense in the league. They're very okay with living in the mid-range, which is what you need to do against Merrimack. They don't turn the ball over, which is what you cannot do against Merrimack. Just kills teams. They let Kennedy get out in transition. He gets to the rim, gets to the foul line. And this Merrimack team, I had Quinnipiac last weekend against them, who was up like 10 in the second half. They went 1 of 16 from 3, which is ridiculous. And they're a decent three-point shooting team. But for whatever reason in that game, that ended 56-49. Quinnipiac made 1 3. Merrimack made 3 threes to start the game in like the first minute. But I don't know what happened with Quinnipiac, but their senior point guard, Asim Jones, he's not great, but he's their senior point guard against a very complex zone. He got a couple fouls. They didn't play him the whole game. They went with their freshman, Ty Turnage, the entire game. I don't know what the hell was going on, who had an abysmal day. So I don't know. I think Siena keeps it. This is like a 1-possession game at the end. Merrimack will probably take my money again. But, Maddie, do you have anything for Friday?
Yeah, I do. Not in the sheet here. I'm going to go off the cuff. I just looked at it. I hyped up Milwaukee, and they get their not crosstown, but intra-conference rival, Detroit Mercy, who got them on their floor in the first meeting. I make this Milwaukee -2. Again, I just think Bart Lundy basically parked the bus when he had injuries for part of this conference season. He's just going to ramp up for conference play. They got to get some momentum going into conference tournament. I think they win at Detroit. very simple for me.
Greg, you got something for Friday?
Yeah, I have one for Friday. I'm going back to Mackey Arena, and I'm actually going to take the underdog here. I understand the spot implications of this, but sometimes I think when there's a gut-wrenching loss to the point of conference title elimination, that can have lingering effects. This Purdue team is essentially just trying to get to March at this point, and you can feel that in the arena. And I think you can hear that and sense it from listening to Matt Painter and these veterans that have been around forever. This is an Indiana team that plays a brand of basketball that really works against the way Purdue wants to defend. They want to cut off driving lanes. They want to give up three-point attempts. Since Nick Dorn's been inserted into the lineup for the Hoosiers, they have really, really upped it on the offensive end. They're 19th per Torvik in their last 7 games in the country. I think it's for real. Obviously, they beat Purdue the first time, and they didn't even really shoot the lights out in that game in Assembly Hall. I think they were 36%. This is going to be a 10.5-point spread. I think that's too many points. I don't know if they win. In fact, I'd be surprised if they do, obviously. But I think this is a game that comes down to the wire.
Yeah, it's a spot I like to bet in college football. Don't mind it in college basketball. Is these teams, they're coming off a huge top 5, top 10 game. The team that loses, I always like to fade in their next game. Everyone thinks that they're going to bounce back, right? And a lot of times there's like an extra premium on the spread because of that. But many times, you actually come out a bit flat and a bit deflated, and like your energy is down after such a draining game. So I can see that if the line is a bit inflated. Moving to Saturday, I'm going to be looking at Oklahoma at home against Texas A&M. I think A&M has been figured out, and buckyball in the SEC is everyone is adjusted to. Since January 15th, I mean, you could take any date over a month ago, around a month time frame. Since January 15th, Texas A&M, in their defense, turnovers forced per game, 314th. Do you know what they were? I mean, they're pressing the entire game. That's the premise of their defense. Up until January 15th, Texas A&M, they didn't really play anybody, but they were 16th. So they've gone from 16th up until January 15th. And then since then, they've been one of the 50 worst teams in forcing turnovers. So I think teams have adjusted to the pressure. I think Oklahoma will make some adjustments here. They just shredded a press at home in Georgia. This is the second time they're playing A&M, the second time you're playing this unique style. And I just think this A&M team is fading. Oklahoma's played a much tougher schedule. They won't get crushed inside. They actually can get a lot of second chance opportunities here. They hit their threes at home. They'll get plenty of opportunities there. And like this Texas A&M team, I mean, teams are shooting under 30% from three in SEC play, and we're still seeing them fade away of late. I like the Sooners at home. They got to win out, like to have a chance to be on the bubble. As weird as that sounds, but like they're like a 2% chance, I would say now. But they haven't quit. Like the reason I bring that up is like, they lost to Tennessee. We saw them, get blown out against Kentucky, which I think pretty much eliminated them from at large. They go to Vandy and win the next game. They blow out Georgia. But even going further back, like they should have won at Missouri after a loss to South Carolina. They played Arkansas down to the wire, Alabama down to the wire. So this team still fights for Porter. I like them at home in a coin flip game against Texas A&M. Maddie?
Yeah, I actually kind of like OU. My OU thing was look for road games. I didn't like the Fire Moser chance, but you're right. They are still fighting for him. I just think sometimes when you have a bad vibes team, akin to the later Indiana Mike Woodson years, it's like I kind of like to back IU away from that home environment, which can actually turn into a negative home court advantage if it's going really bad. But I agree with you. They have shown some fight.
That is a football town through and through. I remember I went to a game. They were playing Wisconsin. Wisconsin was ranked 12th. I mean, this is like 8 years ago. I went to a football game the night before. I think it was Bedlam, and it might have been for the Big 12 championship. But it was an early tip, granted, on a Sunday. I think it was like a 1 or 2 o'clock or 12 or 1 local time. But I go there, and they're playing a top 15 team, and this is like a tournament team. There was nobody there. It was so dead. The football team, it was to win the Big 12. The night before, Oklahoma won the Big 12 by beating Oklahoma State. The football team came at the half, And then they like congratulated them during halftime. And you have waves of people coming, saw the football team, and then all left. It's not a very intimidating home.
They've had a good home court historically, like just by the numbers. Like them and TC are the two Big 12 teams where you don't think of like, wow, crazy home environments, but they tend to just play better there and kind of just not played as well away. Just one of those weird things that sometimes just kind of the way it is.
What else you got? You got anything? What do you got for Saturday?
Saturday, I am looking at a place that used to be a quiet cavern of a venue, but the Blue Demons are garnering some noise in the Chicago area. They did finally get off their 4-game losing streak. They beat Creighton at home. They went into Seton Hall and won convincingly. You go back to that 4-game losing streak. They were, the Georgetown game, I thought they got a terrible whistle. They shot 5 free throws. The Xavier game they blew. They were dominating that game. Blew that late. St. John's competitive, and they got blown out at Providence. Now they get Providence again back home. NJ Benson just played like a totally different player the last two. Holtman said he's going to challenge them. They've had some guys that they needed to kind of get healthy. That week in between Creighton and Hall was huge. I think this DePaul team's kind of a buy low, as sort of weird as that sounds, because they've kind of been the toast of the dregs uprising in the Big East. But I do think this team is gritty. They actually guard unlike any Holtman team he's ever had. And I'm sort of thinking Providence is on the verge of teetering with kind of the whole Jason Edwards situation. Kim English obviously is not the apple of the Friars fans' eyes right now. I think this is a game where DePaul kind of keeps it going. It moves to 3. You probably should get a good price here. I think -2, -3, -1, maybe a slight shade from the KenPom, but nothing higher than that.
Greg, let's talk Duke, Michigan. My first inclination, I saw a +4. I was thinking about Duke. But the more I think about this game, Duke unders have been free money all year. Michigan unders are scary proposition. But it's going to be hard for Duke to score. It's going to be hard, inside against this Michigan defense. But this Duke defense is legit. They are one of the few teams that has, 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", and NBA guys that can battle Michigan in the paint. They're also going to slow this game down to a crawl. They're going to keep Michigan out of transition. They have the guys that can get on the defensive glass with physicality to keep Michigan from getting second chance points. So, I think both defenses can do a lot of work here. Neutral court. So 148.5. This feels like a game that'll be played to the low 70s. So I was thinking under initially. I know that I think at first glance like Michigan.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to jump in on the freight train here. For all the reasons Matt loves them that he laid out early, this team, I think, is a matchup inducing nightmare for teams that are completely built around a front court superstar. I think we saw that at Players Era. I think to an extent we have seen that in Big Ten play. Again, the game that was most problematic to Michigan was a Wisconsin team without their starting center that basically didn't even try to make a post entry the entire game. Boozer is phenomenal. He will be the most difficult challenge Michigan has seen. But I know we kind of floated the idea of him stepping out and spacing this team out. I don't think they're ever going to let Mara get a possession where he's responsible for stepping out and guarding Cam Boozer. Maybe they force that. Maybe Shire gets cute and goes away from Ngangba and Malik Brown. But Michigan just has counters for everything. They'll go Merez at the 5. They'll put Yaxel at the 4. They can solve literally any problem that teams try to introduce to them. And then I think their depth is going to come up huge in this game. Against North Carolina, Duke went basically Foster, Sarr, Evans for the entire game. They all played 35 to 37 minutes in that game, and I think you saw them wear down the stretch as they blew that lead. Michigan just relentlessly wears on opponents with McKinney and Kaysen off the bench. I think their guards are really going to be the story of this game. I don't think Foster can handle that. I don't think they have anyone that can guard Yaxel Lendeborg. And I just think Michigan has multiple answers to frustrate Boozer.
Yeah, Michigan, sans last game, they take away the recency bias, they have been like a second half monster all year. So I could see a Duke first half, Michigan second half play. but the under might be worth a look as well. Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, just to your under point, Stuck. Yeah, I'm looking at data here. I kind of thought Shire, this was sort of rumored amongst Duke circles at the end of 2024, like just the way he treats second halves. Like he really likes to get his vice grip on controlling the game possession by possession, what he has, especially against a star. They are 17-6 to the under second half this season. They are 68-45 second half under since Shire took over. If this game is close, I think you like second half under. I think it trends toward full game under. If you think Michigan like lays the lumber, like Greg's kind of saying, I kind of think so too. I think Michigan kind of controls the tempo. And this game probably skews more overy with some
doesn't let
slim,
you get in transition. Like that's the thing that's going to make that. I don't think that this is going to be a game. And because Duke's still good in the defensive glass, I don't think this is a game where Michigan does their 85, 90 point thing. Obviously, if they hit like 15 threes, but I do think the Duke defense will be probably like out of all the defenses in college basketball, if you had to take one to face the Michigan offense, aren't you probably taking Duke with Gungba, Boozer, Malik Brown, and the way that they keep teams out of transition and can get on the defensive glass? Like, if you're taking one defense to play Michigan for a day, would you take Duke? I mean, you could maybe take Florida.
I think Duke is the booze. You can exploit Boozer as you can kind of drive him if you can get him to stretch away. That's where he's sort of, I think, been exposed as not elite, but he is he can still hold his own on the up front. Michigan's going to obviously be playing two bigs most of the time. So yeah, if that's how May tends to attack it, I think you're right. The other spots at Duke are all solid. You got Sarr, who's so long, he just puts people in jail. They're so long to contest threes. I think they do match up well.
We'll see how Cadeau play. I think Cadeau's had a brutal. It's obviously a different team, but with a much better coach and team. But yeah, he's not had a good history against Duke. Greg, who would you, if you had to take one defense for a day to play Michigan?
I think Duke might be the answer. Prior to this conversation, my thought has been Houston, just because I think their guards and wings are menaces, and they could force a bunch of turnovers and basically get Cadeau out of the game. But Duke can probably do that too. I think that's a good shout.
Yeah. All right, Greg, what else you got? This will be an interesting one. Is what's going to happen with how many guys is Mick Cronin going to throw out? Do you like Illinois?
Yeah, I'm kind of doing my big game, Big Ten thing, hunting again here, but I love Illinois. I just think they're going to destroy UCLA on the glass. And I looked at this West Coast trip in general as sort of a treacherous spot for Illinois. I thought USC would be the crappy game and that they matched up really well with UCLA. Then instead, they just got Stojakovic back and were fully healthy for the first time in weeks. And I think the entire team sort of just had this emotional pickup from that moment. I honestly do expect it to carry into this. I know that, it's always a little scary to go against Mick Cronin back home when he's been berating his team publicly. I'm not very afraid to do that right now. I think Illinois' size really gets to dent in this game as well. Illinois, since they've revamped this defense, they really just dare you to make shots over their length. I don't think that's Donovan Dent's game. He needs to kind of weave into traffic, and Illinois has been pretty good at preventing getting 2 feet in the paint. So terrible matchup. Give me the team that is looking like a top 4 team in the country right now.
The spot made me wants to bet UCLA so bad. They got blown out by 30 in back-to-back games. They come back home playing an Illinois team who just had played a perfect game and put up 100+ with Michigan on deck. But you're right, the matchup is not ideal. The boards, Illinois is going to crush them on the offensive glass in particular. And I am so curious, how does UCLA respond? With all this Cronin stuff and throwing out one of his players mid-game, do they rally here, or do they fold for the rest of the season? Be interesting to watch. But they've obviously, these West Coast teams, they can't, in the Big Ten, they can't travel. It's almost like they should combine with the West Coast ACC teams and form a conference. That would be an interesting experiment.
They don't have the same home court on the return trips. That's what's tough, right? They have it way harder going east, and then when teams come west, just hate to say, Pauley Plain's not a hard place to go play. It's just not. I mean, USC is just a I mean, that place is like basically a happy hour. So yeah, the deck is stacked against them with the home road schedule all conference long. I just think it wears on these teams. I mean, Oregon was healthy, different, right? Washington was healthy, different, but until we see a Big Ten team run through the league at like a high level with a strong record, I think that's going to be an uphill battle they're fighting until they fix it.
Couple more from me. I'm going to look at LSU. I know Dedan Thomas is now ruled out for the year, but they had a couple other injuries. They're going to be a little healthier. At home against an Alabama team coming off double overtime win. I could see them being a little flat here. And I don't mind fading Alabama as a favorite on the road because their defense is just horrendous and anyone can score on them. I think it was Arkansas was the first team in college basketball history to score 115 points with fewer than 10 turnovers and still lose. Teams were 247-0 before then. So no issues fading Alabama as a road favorite. Auburn against Kentucky. Why did Kentucky have to lose to Georgia? Kind of hurt this spot a little bit. Auburn's in free fall mode. I don't know what's going on with them, but if there's ever a spot to get their best effort, like if they lose this game, I know they have the number one strength of schedule. They're going to be squarely on the bubble. Kentucky, you never know what you're going to get, except they're going to come out slow and be down early. So I think Auburn at home against Kentucky, Auburn first half. Kentucky rotations in the first half are weird too. Who knows if Auburn melts it away or Kentucky has a comeback. I'll be looking at Auburn first half. In the weeds, I embarrassed myself talking about Army against Navy in the first meeting. I might look at Army again first at home against Navy. They lost by 30 in the first meeting. Navy couldn't miss. They couldn't hit a three. There's going to be a lot of 3-point variance in this game. But Navy just became the first team to clinch a regular season championship. They clinched the 1 seed. I'm not sure they'll be fully focused here. I know it's Army Navy, but I think you're going to get a juicy number here. And then on a similar note, Mercyhurst against Long Island. This is pending tonight's results, but I think Mercyhurst matches up well. Mercyhurst grind games down. They don't turn it over. Look at all their losses since January 1st. All their losses are like 1, 2, overtime, 3, 4. It's going to be a close game. They're going to play Long Island. I believe Long Island, if the results go as I think they will lock up the regular season championship and the 1 seed. Not much to play for here. Mercyhurst's final home game of the season, coin flippish game. I think we might be catching a couple of points. So I like Mercyhurst. Way in the weeds there. Maddie, what else you got? Anything?
No, shouts to big shot Bernie Blunt coming out party at Loyola Chicago. I think it was then I realized that Loyola's just not any good, but that was his ascension to prominence in mid-major junkie realm. I'm going to go Sunday, last one here. Pat Scarry and the Towson Tigers in what should be a disgusting basketball game playing against Drexel. 59-58 on January 19th, 63 possessions, typical grind fest. I don't know how the CAA schedule makers messed this up, but Towson gets a much-needed week off. They've had some key guys banged up. Tejada missed a game. They just got their sharpshooter, Ryan Conway, back. He's pretty healthy. He was a key piece last year down the stretch. They were starting to get pretty good. They're off a whole week. Drexel's got to play Monday, Thursday, and then this Sunday. I don't know why that is. I just think it's a way better spot and a team in Towson who is underrated. And I'm stubbornly a believer that they can start shooting better than they have. They have a couple of good individual scores. They just have been ice cold all year.
Can Williamson finally get going? Jeez.
It's just been I think Scary's just I don't know what's going on, but they're another team I had on my buy low watch list. And this is obviously a great spot to back them again. I don't know how you somehow get a week off while the other team has Monday, Thursday coming into the weekend. I'm
gonna fall for the Towson futures
because last year they peaked, right, and then they lost their steam in the conference tournament. Now they're sort of rope-a-doping. And then they're going to peak in the conference tournament. That's my projection for the Towson story archetype this year.
Yeah. I'm not really afraid of that. The CAA is wide open. UNC Wilmington is the number one, it's going to be the number 1 seed, but they're not unbeatable. All right. Greg, anything you got left?
Yeah. Last big game hunt for me. I'm looking at Houston, Arizona. Spot worked out exactly how I wanted. This one too. Houston loses to Iowa State last Monday, has 5 nights to sit on this and wait for the biggest game of their conference season at home. Love that. Arizona, meanwhile, bounces back, gets right, quote unquote, against a Richie Saunders-less BYU. I think Koa Pete is really, really important to this Arizona team. I just think he doesn't necessarily get the credit because of their balance and their physicality, and obviously they're still huge without him, but I don't think they're the same team with him hobbled or unavailable, and I don't know the latest on him.
He's out. He's out. He'll be out until next week.
Like another week, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, then I'm all over Houston here. I think they can create some separation. Obviously, they're physical enough to hang inside, but I really think without Pete, that's just not a formula for success. And then the guards, like Flemings has been so damn good. I'm not really afraid of him, even with youth, against Jaden Bradley. I think they've got sharp and really multiple answers there that are going to cause some of the wings on Arizona some problems. And look, I've vented about it on this very program before. I think at a certain point, the math behind the way Arizona plays offense is going to catch up to them. I don't like how many mid-range shots this team shoots, and I think Houston is the perfect opponent to take advantage.
All right, good stuff. One of the two awesome games of many, but the two marquee ones I can't wait to watch. We will be talking about them more Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Big Bets on Campus Live. We'll tweet out a link. Thank you to Maddie and Greg for joining me. Thanks to our producer David on the back end. Before we get out of here, just one word. If the lines are where you think they are, your favorite play of the weekend, Greg?
Oh, you scared me on the spot, Illini.
Maddie?
DePaul. Go Demons, playing possessed.
When in doubt, always go DePaul. I'm going to say Mercyhurst.
The Lake Show. The Lake Show.
All right. Good stuff, gentlemen. If you haven't tuned in to our other episodes, make sure you do. Guys from 3 Man, we take care of you early in the week. And then we have Christian and Duck and Calabrese taking care of you midweek. We'll be back same time late next week to talk about the weekend slate. And don't worry, we're going to have you covered for all of the conference tournaments. But that'll do it for us. Make sure you subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, know the drill. Leave a 5-star review if you can. It really helps us out. Enjoy all the hoops this weekend. Good luck on all of your wagers. We'll catch you all later. Cheers.